morning. The Prime Minister should know better by now than to think that we are bluffing.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's administration has made a dangerous mistake by underestimating Alberta's resolve to protect its economic future. Premier Danielle Smith isn't just making noise, she's taking action, pushing back against Ottawa's increasing interference in provincial affairs. After months of tension over the controversial Impact Assessment Act, Smith has made it clear, Alberta's natural resources and its future are not up for debate. But it's not just about local policy. This legal battle has become a full-scale showdown over the balance of power between the provinces and the federal government, and the stakes are higher than ever. What started as a bureaucratic clash has now evolved into a war for Alberta's autonomy. The issue began when the federal government introduced amendments to the Impact Assessment Act, which many experts, including Smith, criticized as a thinly veiled power grab. Trudeau's federal policies have been framed as necessary for environmental protection, but they are being perceived in Alberta as an attack on their economy and sovereignty. The province, rich in natural resources, needs to make decisions that align with its unique economic landscape, not be dictated to by Ottawa, a city that doesn't understand Alberta's needs. Smith's bold legal challenge is more than just a protest. It's a message to Ottawa that Alberta will not back down. Trudeau's government, which promised to usher in a new era of cooperation, now faces a full-scale rebellion as Alberta claims its right to manage its own resources without federal interference. The problem? Ottawa's promises of compromise are nothing but clever wordplay, designed to maintain control rather than give the province the freedom it deserves. The tension has reached a boiling point. Alberta's economic future is on the line, with job losses and declining investment threatening to cripple the province's prosperity. The government's constant delays in approving resource development projects have made investors look elsewhere, and Alberta's leaders have had enough. The result? The province is filing legal action to protect its future, and other regions across Canada are beginning to take notice. If Alberta wins this battle, it could reshape Canada's entire political landscape, pushing back against Ottawa's overreach and ensuring provinces have more control over their own affairs. This fight is far from over, and it's clear that Alberta's actions could set a precedent for the entire nation. Trudeau may want to keep pushing for centralized control, but Alberta isn't backing down. If anything, this legal battle is just the beginning of a wider movement to restore power to the provinces and push back against a federal government that continues to ignore their needs. Watch closely. What happens in Alberta could change the future of Canadian federalism. As the legal battle intensifies, the implications stretch far beyond Alberta. This fight has sparked a broader national conversation about the power dynamics between federal and provincial governments in Canada. Alberta's legal challenge is not only about resources. It's about the principle of provincial autonomy and the ability of local governments to make decisions that directly affect their economies. Across the country, other provinces are watching closely. Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and even Ontario might begin to question whether Ottawa's growing control over their local economies and natural resources is fair or constitutional. If Alberta is successful in its legal challenge, it could inspire a nationwide movement, with other provinces asserting their rights to self-governance. Trudeau's federalist vision, which has increasingly been seen as a way to centralize power in Ottawa, is now facing a direct challenge that could shake the foundations of Canadian politics. The question of whether provinces have the right to manage their own natural resources without federal interference is at the heart of this dispute. Section 92 of the Canadian Constitution, which grants provinces control over their own resources, is now being tested in court. If Alberta prevails, it could force Ottawa to rethink its approach to federal-provincial relations, and the balance of power could tip in favor of the provinces. This would represent a massive shift in Canadian federalism, one that could have profound consequences for the future of the country. Trudeau's approach to this crisis has been predictably dismissive. Instead of acknowledging the legitimacy of Alberta's concerns, his government has doubled down, accusing Premier Smith of grandstanding and undermining national unity. But the reality is, it's Trudeau's policies that are creating division. His refusal to acknowledge the unique needs of provinces like Alberta, and his insistence on controlling their economic futures, is alienating large segments of the population. As Alberta continues to stand firm against what it sees as federal overreach, the broader implications of this struggle are becoming clearer. If this legal battle ends in Alberta's favor, it could have ripple effects across the world, as other federal systems in countries like the United States and India are grappling with similar tensions between local autonomy and centralized control. Alberta's fight could become a case study for other regions looking to push back against the growing power of their central governments. The Trudeau administration's policies are not just hurting Alberta, they're harming all Canadians. The economic consequences of delayed resource development and stalled projects are being felt nationwide. With 150,000 jobs on the line and billions of dollars in lost investment, Trudeau's refusal to listen to Alberta's concerns is pushing Canada further down a path of economic decline. If Trudeau doesn't shift his approach, Canada could find itself in a much deeper crisis, one that threatens not just Alberta's prosperity but the economic future of the entire nation. The Trudeau government's rhetoric about national unity rings hollow when it's clear that the policies being pushed from Ottawa are doing more to divide the country than unite it. For many Canadians, Trudeau's vision of unity is simply about forcing provinces to comply with Ottawa's will, regardless of their unique needs or concerns. But Alberta is standing up, not just for its own future, but for the future of Canadian federalism as a whole. This legal challenge is a defining moment for Canada. It's a moment where the country must decide whether the federal government should have the final say on all matters, or whether provinces like Alberta should have the freedom to chart their own path. The outcome of this battle could reshape Canada's political landscape, influence the future of resource development, and redefine the relationship between Ottawa and the provinces for generations to come. The time for change is now, and it's up to the courts to decide whether Canada will continue down the path of centralized control or embrace a future where provinces can govern themselves without interference. As the legal battle continues to unfold, the ripple effects of Alberta's challenge to Ottawa's authority are becoming increasingly significant. While Trudeau and his government try to portray Premier Smith's lawsuit as an attempt to undermine national unity, the truth is that it's shining a light on the deep frustrations felt by many provinces. The notion of national unity under Trudeau's vision appears to mean the imposition of one-size-fits-all policies from Ottawa, often at the expense of provincial autonomy. This has fueled Alberta's determination to push back, not only on behalf of its own economic future, but also for the broader principle of provincial rights. Alberta's stand is striking a chord with other regions in Canada. Provinces like Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and even Ontario are beginning to recognize the potential dangers of allowing the federal government too much control over their local affairs. This isn't just an Alberta issue. It's a fight that could lead to a nationwide reconsideration of the federal-provincial relationship, with implications for every corner of the country. As other provinces look to Alberta's challenge, they may decide to assert their own rights and question Ottawa's increasing encroachment into provincial matters. The battle over natural resources and economic control is not just about the bottom line for Alberta's oil and gas industry. It's about preserving the autonomy of local governments to determine their own future. The economic consequences of Ottawa's interference are already being felt, with Alberta losing billions in investment and missing out on key opportunities to grow its economy. Trudeau's centralization of power is suffocating the provinces, and this is especially evident in resource-rich regions like Alberta, where the federal government's policies have caused delays and uncertainty, ultimately pushing investors elsewhere. But Alberta's legal challenge could mark a turning point. If the courts rule in Alberta's favor, it could not only reshape federal-provincial relations but also send a powerful message to Ottawa. Provinces have a right to manage their own resources without undue interference from the federal government. A victory in this case would embolden other provinces to fight back against Ottawa's growing influence and demand more control over their own affairs. As this legal fight plays out, it's clear that it's more than just a legal dispute. It's a matter of national importance that touches on the very essence of Canadian federalism. The question at the heart of this debate is simple. Should Ottawa have the final say in every decision that affects provinces, or should provinces have the right to manage their own resources and make decisions in the best interests of their people? The outcome of this case has the potential to reshape Canadian politics and governance for years to come. Alberta's pushback is not just a challenge to Trudeau's policies but a broader challenge to the concentration of power in Ottawa. As other provinces consider following Alberta's lead, Trudeau's vision of a unified Canada under federal control is beginning to look less certain. Whether or not he acknowledges it, the political landscape of Canada is shifting, and this legal showdown is a key moment in determining the future of the country. For many, the implications of this legal battle go beyond just Alberta's economy or the political ambitions of Premier Smith. It is a crucial test of whether the Canadian Federation can balance the power between Ottawa and its provinces or whether one side will dominate the other. If Alberta prevails in this challenge, it could set a new precedent for how federalism operates in Canada, emphasizing the rights of provinces to manage their own affairs without undue interference from the central government. And as the legal battle continues, it's likely that the debate surrounding this case will grow even more intense, especially as more provinces start to consider their own positions on federal overreach. Trudeau's insistence on centralized control may soon become a defining issue of his tenure, with the potential to change the political dynamics in Canada for good. The time for action is now, and the courts will ultimately decide whether the future of Canadian federalism will be defined by a more decentralized, provincial approach or one where Ottawa retains the power to dictate terms to the provinces.